welcome Penelope. Thank you so much for coming over this morning.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm honoured.
Oh, it's my pleasure. So we actually met a good couple of years ago, didn't we? Through a friend of mine who was having Reiki with you, and he kept badgering me. He said, Susie, you have got to meet this woman. And he kept on texting me, and I said, fine, I'll meet her. And we met for lunch, didn't we?
We did.
And we just got on like a house on fire.
We did.
Yeah, so I'm really, really delighted that you can talk about your journey and how you help people with what you've learned, because you have really gone on a journey, haven't you?
You could say that.
My goodness, yes, I know quite a bit about your backstory from you telling me. So do you want to start by explaining how you've got to be doing this work that you're doing now?
Sure. So when I was at school, we were asked to pick what A-levels we were going to do and then what we were going to do at university. And I'm a Libran, and I'm very indecisive naturally, and I had no idea what I wanted to do. And we sat a test, a bit like a psychometric test, and it was supposed to give us clear guidance as to what we would be best doing in a career. And I basically came out bang in the middle, and it said you could be anything, like I don't know, architect, artist, teacher, whatever. So it was no help to me whatsoever. And my dad is a dentist, and so it was decided that I would follow in my dad's footsteps.
So when you say it was decided, presumably not by you?
Well, I obviously agreed to it, but it was. I think the plan was for me to go and join my dad in his dental practice. So off I went to university, and didn't enjoy it at all. Didn't light me up. Now, the contrast is my dad eats, sleeps, and breathes dentistry. I mean, literally 24 hours a day. And it was very apparent to me that I didn't have that sort of feeling.
That fire in your belly for dentistry?
Not at all. I struggled in lectures to stay attentive. I was daydreaming. And yeah, I also became quite ill. So towards the end of my course, I actually got glandular fever. I was really, really poorly. And my immune system was shot. And I was lying in bed, and I thought, am I going to carry this on, or am I going to do something else? And I made the decision to not do it, to go and do something else. So to soften the blow to my parents, I went off and got a job at Bupa. And I said, I'm going to be there for a year whilst I work out what I want to do with my life. And I was there for 6 years, absolutely loved it, worked with some amazing people, learned some great skills. And then I met my ex-husband, and he didn't want me to work, so I did that for 2 weeks, was bored out my brains, then decided to go and retrain as an interior designer, so I worked alongside him in his business. And then fast forward, I've had 2 babies, and the smallest one was tiny baby, and unfortunately the marriage dissolved, and I left in the middle of the night with the 2 babies one night and started again from scratch. So I think I also probably had postnatal depression, and I went to the doctors, and within less than a 4-minute conversation was written a prescription for antidepressants. And this is going to sound a bit contradictory, because I know I obviously went there for something, but as I was walking out the door with this prescription, I looked at it and I thought, something inside me just said, this is not going to help you deal with your core issues, it's just going to mask it over. And so I ripped the prescription up and went in search of alternative therapies. So there, I had, during this time, it's obviously quite raw and difficult when a marriage dissolves, and it was quite toxic as well. And my ex was with my ex-best friend at the time, and they were around in the area where I used to live. And so I got to the point where I couldn't go into the village because I was scared of seeing them and all the emotions that would bring back up for me. I then got to the point where I couldn't drive through the village, and then it just escalated from there.
So what would happen if you would feel physically...
Feeling sick, but the actual physical symptoms escalated as well. So it got to the point where I couldn't talk about the area. I couldn't think about the area without violently shaking and being sick.
And this was an area that you needed to go through because
my daughter was at
school.
Not at school. She was at nursery, like a preschool nursery. Nursery.
So that is really debilitating to not even be able to mention the name of the village where your daughter's at nursery.
Yeah. So my parents were at their wits' end. So they sent me off to see a lady called Helena Phone, who they knew. And I should also say that my parents had both trained in EFT as well as part of their CPD. So I went off to see her, and I think I had like three 1.5 hour sessions with her.
And just to explain for listeners who don't know what EFT is, so it's emotional freedom technique.
Or tapping.
And also known as tapping.
It's a bit like acupuncture but without the needles, so you tap on the acupressure points while saying a negative statement, and then once that negative statement has subsided you then replace it with a positive one.
Yeah.
So does that sum it up?
Yeah.
You do EFT?
I do EFT, and it's always a challenge to explain it. I always say just go and try it because it's really hard to explain, isn't it? Yeah.
But it's really amazing how it works as well, because you think this isn't going to work, it's silly, and then all of a sudden you don't have the feelings and the symptoms that you had before.
So you went specifically for that triggering that you had every time you even thought about driving through this place. You went specifically for that.
For that.
And did it help?
Well, so after the third appointment, the next day my parents took me for lunch in the village, and my ex-best friend walked past me and I felt nothing. And then I realised that I hadn't had any anxiety or symptoms getting ready, getting into the car, driving down the road, going into the village, parking up, getting out the car, going into the restaurant. And it was like this aha moment, and I was like, I have to help other women that have been through what I've been through so that they don't have to carry this emotional baggage around with them like I'd been doing for months.
Because I think everyone will relate to that triggering, maybe not to the degree that you had it, but I think everyone has these things where it may be seeing somebody, or it might even be hearing a song or smelling something or eating something that will just trigger something from our past that pulls us right back into that trauma. And you don't get rid of that just by talking about it and knowing about it. It doesn't necessarily help. It's EFT is brilliant at kind of unplugging that association. So wow, so that was your kind of entry into more alternative.
Yeah. So at the same time, I should also probably mention I was in talk therapy as well.
Yeah.
Which for me, I didn't enjoy. I felt that every Friday morning at 9 o'clock I was rehashing the same story for an hour, and I was stuck in that old energy, and I felt frustrated I wasn't moving forwards.
Yeah.
I'd also been referred onto the Freedom course, the Freedom programme, which is for domestic violence. So that was also really enlightening for me as well, that I wasn't actually going crazy. So that was a big part of it. And then I also got other symptoms, which were nervous churning, sicky feeling around my upper part of my tummy.
Because that's often where we get it, isn't it? Especially family stuff. We feel a lot around there.
So if I got a text message or an email
from your ex.
Yeah.
Sorry, not my ex. You have an ex.
it would this sort of emotion and these feelings would come straight back, and so somebody else, a mum at school recommended Reiki, and I was like, what's Reiki? That sounds really woo-woo. And she was like, no, you've got to go and try it. I can't explain to you what it is, you've just got to try it. So I was like, okay, so she recommended me to her Reiki master. So off I go, and I'm taken into this room, and I'm lying on this bed, and the lady really explained to me what she was going to do. So you're fully clothed, you lie on the bed, she puts a blanket on you, the room's all beautiful and calm and warm, and there's candles lit and music playing, And she just said, right, close your eyes. And then she basically just placed her hands on to various parts of my body. So the top of my head, my forehead, sort of my throat area, heart, and then my tummy area, and then down to my feet, knees and feet. And after the first one, I was relaxed, but I wasn't as relaxed as the second time I went. The second time I went, I'm pretty sure I fell asleep and started snoring.
Well, that's so common, isn't it, with Reiki?
Yeah.
It's so deeply relaxing, isn't it?
Yeah. So, and then I think it was after the third time I noticed that sensation had gone, that churning. It just started to almost very subtly just disappear. But then what happened was loads of positive things started happening in my life. A girl from school who I hadn't seen for 10 years phoned me up and offered me a job out of the blue, and my life really started to pick up again after that. The other thing that was recommended to me as well was meditation. Yeah. And after 2 weeks of meditating, so I just went on YouTube and I found a guided, I sort of had a look at a few, picked a guided meditation that I enjoyed. So I started 3 minutes, then 5 minutes, then 10 minutes every day. After 2 weeks of doing that, my counsellor signed me off and said that she couldn't believe the profound change that she'd seen in me and how much more positive I was, and all these things have had a massive knock-on effect in my life. I've tried some other things that didn't work for me, didn't really resonate with me, so I kind of park those to one side. But I do like to try different things and work out what I do and don't like. So the things that I now do in my practice are the things that really, really work for me.
Oh, and how wonderful that you can now share them with so many more people. So tell us a little bit about, I know that you're very keen on helping people to live a purposeful life and find meaning in life. And I think meaning often gets overlooked, doesn't it, in our race to kind of eat well and look after our fitness and sleep well, and even things like meditate, which all these things are absolutely fundamental, aren't they? But I think the meaning is not talked about so much. And often I see people who may be doing all of those things to look after themselves physically, but they have a meaning-shaped hole in their life. And you can't really be fully happy, fully actualized, in your life if you don't have meaning. It's such an important part of happiness and well-being, isn't it? So
it is, but it's not really something that we're taught at school. I don't know. I think at my daughter's school they are sort of talking about values and things now, and things, teaching them about that. But I know when I was at school we weren't taught anything like that at all. So as my career progressed, I then became a project manager, and I was working on projects for blue chip companies, and I couldn't understand why I seemed to really struggle with the workload. I seemed to be slower than other people. I wasn't quite grasping things. Macro Excel spreadsheets are not my thing at all. I don't mind holding my hands up and admitting that. So we would spend months creating a project, the thousands of men that were on the job, the man hours, the stress that went with it. Creating these projects, we'd go and then install these installations for 2 weeks, and then we'd go in and rip them out. And I couldn't understand why this felt really icky to me or uncomfortable. And I realised that it wasn't in alignment with my values. So this kit was not recycled or repurposed or anything. It was just binned, and I was like, all this money and time and effort that's gone into this, and then it's just literally binned. I couldn't get my head around it, but at the time I didn't know what values were, and I didn't realise that they were in conflict with my own inner values.
Because you didn't know what your inner values were.
I didn't know what a value was, so if I'm honest. So it's only in the past few years when I've done this work and I can go, oh, that's why that doesn't work. Yeah. That's why I feel that way. That's why I get that odd feeling in my tummy, like someone's kicked me in the tummy when something isn't in alignment with my core values. So I love teaching women about how to find their core values, and then to go on and if you've heard of Ikigai.
Yeah, tell us more about that.
So I was at a women's coaching group called Damsels in Success, And I sat there. Oh, it was great. It was great. And I sat there, and the lady put this Venn diagram onto the on the big screen, and it was all about the first circle's what you love, the second circle's what the world needs, the third circle's what you can be paid for, and the fourth circle's what skills you have. And I was like, why has no one ever taught me this before? It's another aha moment, and I was like, this is so simple, and it makes so much sense why I've tried all these different jobs, and none of them have really stuck with me, although they've taught me great skills along the way, absolutely, which has then helped me in my own business, so I'm grateful to every one of them. And I thought, this is what I want to teach women, that they can do stuff that they enjoy, that they can get paid for, and that is of service to other people as well, rather than...
And of course also applies to men as well.
Absolutely.
Yes,
Yes, it
leave the guys out.
No, sorry, it's just I mainly work with women, but yes, it works for everybody. And kids as well, so I teach this to my teenage daughters. So yeah, and then getting rid of limiting beliefs, so that, you know, once you've set your goals and you know the direction you want to go in life, that you're not self-sabotaging yourself because of subconscious beliefs that you know, limiting beliefs you don't potentially know you have from childhood that you've grown up with.
Yes. So can you give us a few examples of the limiting beliefs that you see cropping up time and time again?
I'll tell you one of my biggest ones, which was again my aha moment, and I apologise, Mum, for saying this live, but it is true. So when I was growing up, whenever a sports car drove past us, my mum would say drug dealer, money launderer.
Oh.
And that was going in my head all the time. So I had a huge money block about being successful and about earning money, because if I had a sports car, my mum would think that I was either corrupt or a drug dealer or a money launderer, which sounds a bit crazy, but it makes sense as to why I could get to a certain point and then couldn't push past that certain
because
point.
good people don't have lots of money.
Yeah, basically. So that I did a load of tapping around that, the EFT, to get rid of that limiting belief, and my life has taken a different direction since then. But you see it all the time with people who think they're not good enough, imposter syndrome, things like that. Yeah. It's quite common.
And it's amazing, isn't it, how just throwaway comments from parents can just have such an impact on how we develop as we grow up and just stay with us. And often we're not aware that we even have these limiting beliefs, these false beliefs that we're carting around with us, and that affect our decisions and how we show up in the world. And it can be just a little thing that parents didn't even maybe think twice about, was said with no weight at all, and yet it's kind of informed our whole life.
For sure. I mean, I hadn't even realised I had that limiting belief until I'd been obviously doing a lot of work on myself over the past sort of 10, 11 years. And then one day, Mum, there was something on the news that she was watching, and the statement that she came out with was that all rich people are corrupt.
Mm-hmm.
And that was like, no, that's absolutely not true. And that was when I realised, and that was when it came in my head, that thought that had been planted years and years ago, again, innocently on her part. She was, you know, Mum doing...
And she probably got that from her parents.
Probably.
And they just get handed down, don't we? And we can almost like drink these things in with our mother's milk, almost, and we just perpetuate them and then hand them down to our kids, unless we know to interrupt that cycle.
But then there's an icky feeling that comes with that, actually challenging your parent.
Yeah.
Like, actually, no, not all rich people are corrupt. And then she's like, go on, name one. Like Oprah Winfrey, J.K. Rowling, you know, and it's like they're my idols as well.
Oh, yeah.
So then she's sort of questioning who I look up to as well, so it's really difficult. But yeah, it's really also important to be true to who you are.
Yeah, and we've chatted about this, haven't we, before we came on air, and we were talking about the fact that when you were younger, you were very much a people pleaser, as so many women are, and you wanted to be liked and loved by everyone, which of course is impossible.
Yeah,
isn't it?
It's draining and it's exhausting. And I got to a point where I realised that even though I was doing everything to try and get people to like me, they didn't, and it didn't make me happy. But also I lost my sense of self. I didn't know who I was. So if you would have said to me, what's your favourite restaurant, what's your favourite colour, I don't watch TV, but what's your favourite TV programme, I couldn't have told you because I didn't know. And so this is the other work I've done on myself as well, actually getting to know who I am again. And that comes into the values and all the ikigai, and doing a lot of work around forgiveness, because for me, it was really hard to forgive myself as well for some of especially the people pleasing that I'd done. Once that's into a habit, it's really hard to get out of it. You can, but it's a lot of work.
Really hard. I think especially when people expect you, Penelope, she'll just fit in with everyone, and it is very difficult to break out of the image that other people have of us as well. That can be really scary.
And how shocked they are when you actually say no to something.
Yeah.
And
now you're at this stage where, you've said to me that you don't really care if people leave like negative comments on social media and stuff like that, because you know that you're not for everybody.
Absolutely.
But you are for the people who find you and who are helped by you.
Yeah, absolutely. I have been trolled before, which was an interesting experience the first time that it happened. There was a gentleman that I'd put a post on a local community website, and I was offering my Reiki services. And I should also point out as well that I also used to have a real fear of posting anything anywhere. So this comes back to the people pleasing. So if I would literally get paralysis before I wrote something or posted something on social media, because I was worried, am I going to offend somebody? Is there a spelling mistake in it? Anything, it could have been anything, and I would have been frozen by that. But then I realised to actually move forward with my business, and also to serve the people that I want to serve and spread my light around the globe, that I had to just get past that, go through that fear barrier and just start doing it.
And that's really hard. And because I mean, when you said that, I just sort of saw myself in that as well. Maybe not to that extent, but that, when I have had comments like, oh, she used to work in PR, she's a liar, she should be put in prison. For talking about, the importance of eating protein, just like bonkers stuff. And I would literally feel sick, like physically sick. And I do still have, I'm sure that every single podcast episode that I put out, I'll be like, that stomach crunching, oh, what's going to come back from this one? And yet, if we are paralysed by that, then we're not going to help anybody, because we'll just stay in that terror of, I may offend someone with this episode or that episode, and you end up just not doing it. So I think we all struggle with that.
I think what I realised was that I had a fear of rejection.
Yeah.
So once I realised I had that core fear, then I could work on that, which helped me to move forwards. But the post that I put in the community Facebook group, a gentleman replied and said, Reiki's rubbish, or it was something like that. It was quite
like a mumbo jumbo nonsense.
Something, it was quite harsh. And I was like, the first reaction was like that, and I was like, did I word it wrong, or have I done, all this kind of thing. And I read it back, and I was like, have I put anything that's like medically incorrect or legally incorrect or things like that? These are all the thoughts that go through my head, and I'm looking it back, and I'm like, no, it's all fine. And then this thought popped in my head, and I replied and I said, have you ever had Reiki? And he said, no. So I said, well, how do you know whether it works or not? But then the funny thing was, I didn't have to say anything after that. He wrote some quite derogatory remarks back, but then loads of people came to my rescue.
Who had Reiki?
Not even had Reiki, just said, who are you to put a comment like that on this lady's post where she's clearly just trying to promote her business?
Yeah.
So it actually turned out in a positive way, and he did me a favour because he got loads of comments on my post.
Oh. So what's interesting is obviously you've come from a background of dentistry, and you now work in a sort of clinical background. That's important to you, isn't it?
It's really important to me because of the way that I was brought up, obviously in a dental family, and learning about how to, what am I trying to say, patient confidentiality and things like that, and how everything should be evidence-based. So I very much, when I decided to start my own practice 3 years ago, I wanted to keep it on a very clinical basis, and so I approached local GP services, and went in and was really excited, full of enthusiasm, and hey, I'm here and I can offer these complementary therapies, and they literally, I kid you not, laughed in my face, which was really demoralising and demotivating. But something inside me just kept saying, keep going with this, keep going with this. So I knocked on doors, and then the universe sort of took it into its own hands. So I was really clear with the intention that I wanted to work in this setting. So I thought about hospitals and things like that. And then where my Reiki room was, I lost that. And so there was about a month where I had nowhere to work from. And then a lady, again, phoned me up, contacted me, and she said, I work in this doctor's clinic, and on the left-hand side is all the doctors, and we've bought the right-hand side of the building, and we want it to be a holistic centre, because it's called One, and it's called One because we believe the fact that the Western medicine and the Eastern medicine should come together as one and complement each other. And I was like, oh, you literally are you in my head? I was like, this is on my vision board. You don't understand. I've wanted this for years. And so basically I've gone to work there, and I'm literally working with leading doctors from around the world, which is amazing, and who totally get the ethos, but who also as well have fears around, will their peers
look down on them?
Yeah, because they're doing both, so that's a really interesting aspect as well.
Do you know, I really hope that within our lifetimes we see the two coming together. And it just reminds me of a time when a few years back my husband and my eldest son were in a really unpleasant car crash, and I got a call and went to Wythenshawe Hospital, and Max was just being brought in on a where they keep your back straight. What's it called? Like a back brace.
Yeah.
Which was just horrible to see. And thank God they were fine. They were absolutely fine. But there was this lovely doctor, really, really sweet, who was just checking all his, with a little stick, just checking that there was no damage to his spine or anything, going up and down. And I was just sitting there feeling so powerless and feeling sick that I was seeing Max in that state. And at one point Max started shaking violently. And the doctor said, oh, are you cold? And I knew he wasn't cold. It was very warm in the room. But they had thought they were going to die in this. It was a collision with a sort of lorry. They thought they were going to die. And he'd gone into shock. Mm-hmm. And you could see this was the way that, normal reaction. So I kind of just sprung onto my feet and went and put my hands over him, because obviously being a Reiki master as well. And the doctor sort of looked at me very quizzically, like, what are you doing? And I just went, this is my boy, he's in shock, I'm going to do Reiki on him. And that was, he knew just to kind of not get in the way of a mum with her son. And I literally just put my hands over him for a few minutes, and you could see he stopped shaking, the colour came back to his face. And you and I see this all the time. We've both done Reiki on people in hospitals. And my other son, Louis, who is the biggest cynic, he said, oh, it's all rubbish, Mum, he doesn't believe in any of it.
Woo-woo.
Yeah, but even he sort of grudgingly said, okay, because he could see that in front of his eyes Max was changing colour and getting back to himself, and then he suddenly got up and walked off and wanted to find something to eat. And I see that all the time. So, and I actually wrote a blog about it afterwards, basically saying, wouldn't it be great if we could bring the two together? That clearly we've got to test people's vitals and all the rest of it. thank God we've got these amazing doctors who can do it, and that's absolutely necessary. But also, when people are coming in traumatized, we also need to address the emotional damage as well. And if we could just bring the two together, then that's going to really, really help people. So I wrote the blog and I just showed it to my husband just to check if there are any sort of spelling mistakes, and he said, it's beautifully written, but you can't post it. I said, why not? He said, people think you're a nutter. And I actually didn't post it. Yeah.
Well, what can I say?
So I've got that whole piece of copy, and it was been sat on my computer for the past few years. So I think there is still this reticence from people that, it's energy and it's woo-woo.
Funnily enough, my daughter is going through a series of heart operations, and I've been using the Reiki on her prior to the operations to keep her calm and relaxed, and then after the operation as well, again, to bring, she's quite stressed when she comes around from the anaesthetic, and she really calms down when I lay my hands on her. But they're using it in hospitals in America now.
Oh, isn't that great?
Yeah, so we can put a link. I've got an article about that.
Wow. And you see a lot of cancer patients, don't you?
Yes, so I did part of my training at Beechwood Cancer Centre, and I do treat a lot of cancer patients, and it really gives them a lot of relief.
Yes.
From, to just get out of the situation that they're in just for an hour or an hour and a half, and I call it a hug for your soul.
Oh, so lovely.
Yeah, so they are just allowed to just let go for that time, and it really does have a lovely effect on them. Really does. Relaxes them and just lets them get out their own head, I suppose, for a bit.
And I think that helping people to get out of that fight or flight response is so crucial. And even when I'm just seeing someone for coaching, I'll very often at the end of the session just give them 5 or 10 minutes Reiki, just sitting in the chair. And often, very frequently I'll be doing breathing exercise, mindful breathing, and I'll use, I don't know if you've ever come across HeartMath, but basically you clip it, they have a clip on their ear and then it attaches to your phone. It's a really clever app. And you can track their heart rate variability. So you can actually see in real time that they're coming out of that fight or flight response into this much more balanced, grounded state where their body can heal itself. And it's brilliant for them to see that just by doing a simple breathing practice or visualization or a gratitude practice, literally in real time, their heart rate variability changes. So I think there is now this hopefully coming together of science and this other, whatever you want to call it, complementary, holistic, whatever. And we're now seeing the evidence of what happens to the body when we do calm the nervous system, and people can start to get better. Because there's no point me giving someone, dietary advice if they are in that state of stress. They can't even take it in or begin to make changes. The first thing we've got to do is help people to relax.
Well, there's something else as well that I've found along the way. So from the way that I was brought up as well, the way that I don't just have people come in for Reiki or EFT or whatever and they just come in and we do it. The first appointment, I spend a long time with them, talking to them, looking excuse me, at every area of their life. Sorry.
Because everyone's got a story to tell, but they don't often get the chance to tell it.
I had one lady who came and we were doing the wellbeing questionnaire, which looks at every area of their life, so physical, spiritual, mental, emotional, literally everything that's going on in their life. And she didn't even have the Reiki, and she started crying and she said, I feel so much better. She said, I'm not saying anything against doctors here, but she said, I go to my GP, I've never had this conversation with him.
And that's not the fault of GPs, they've only got 10 minutes.
Limited
How
time.
could they possibly? People need so much longer than that to get to the real story. So they don't, GPs with the best will in the world don't even have the opportunity. So, but I think you're absolutely right. Just being listened to, just having somebody absolutely focus on you, which is what, I do. This is the room where I coach, and people can just tell their story and know that somebody is validating it and acknowledging what they've gone through. And there is so much power in that, isn't there? So much healing in just being listened to.
But I think that's where the two come together.
Yeah.
So if and also can potentially take some pressure off the NHS as well.
Yeah.
If there's some people like us who clients can come to and they can have that time and we take a holistic approach of it.
Yeah.
And then if they get to the point where they do need medical intervention, that is there, because I totally believe in the two. But
Absolutely.
I think both are necessary.
It's got to work together.
For me, it's not one or the other.
No, and I think we need to get away from the kind of them almost being conflict. Like if you're in one camp, you can't possibly be in the other, and it's black or white, and you either believe in one or the other. They've got to work hand in glove, and I really, really hope that we will now, hopefully, start to see a bit more of that. And it's brilliant, isn't it, that Reiki is being embraced by, by hospitals and but it shouldn't just be used on people who are terminally ill. I think it should be for everybody.
Well, also as a preventative measure as well. If you're going and having some sort of well-being therapy every week, it's going to help your overall general well-being, and then hopefully boost your immune system, and then hopefully be less poorly. But going back to the Western and the Eastern medicine, I know very much that if I have had an accident and broken my leg, I'm not going to go and see my Reiki master, I'm going to go to A&E.
Absolutely. Oh, thank God we've got them. Yeah, we've got the most amazing hospital, Wythenshawe, just practically on our doorstep. So thank God for that.
Yeah.
So just going back to the subject of meaning, finding meaning in life, can you tell us a little bit more about, the people who you see in your practice? Do they tend to know what their meaning is? 'Cause it's not something we often think about, is it?
The majority of my clients are successful, ambitious women and a few men, but mainly more with the women. They're on this treadmill where they're climbing the career ladder, and again they lose sight of themselves. They're just pushing forward until they realise one day that they're actually not feeling fulfilled, and that even though they're climbing the career ladder and they are successful, they have not really got a direction of what they do when they get to the next point. So we sit and we work that out, even down to the point of, again, going back to the values, but working out if the sort of the role that they're doing, if they're commuting every day, does that fit in with their values? Is that what they want to do? Would they want to work closer to home? Is going back to the eco thing, let's say the company is not an eco-friendly company, do they want to work for one that is? And just mapping those kind of things out so it gives them a clearer direction of what's going to make them happy, without even having to sort of, does it make sense if I say they don't have to work hard for that? It just is there because it's all in alignment with what they want. The other thing I see is ladies coming who are stay-at-home mums who have dedicated their lives to the partners and the house and their children, bringing them up, and then they get to the stage where they think, my children are going to go to university soon and leave home, and what do I do when they've gone? What is my role within the house and the family and in life? So again, looking at what they would want to do that would light them up and fulfill them.
And that can be hard to have any idea what that is if your identity has been so fixed around your family that you've almost faded into the background.
So we look at things they used to enjoy as a child. So, for example, one of my values is freedom. And it kind of makes sense with everything I've told you along the way. Some of the jobs I've been in, my marriage, I felt trapped. So this was a conflict of my value of freedom. I'm a very free spirit. And it also comes back to when I was little, my mum used to put me in the garden at a wooden table, a wooden chair. I was naked. And I used to paint for hours. But I didn't just used to paint pictures, I'd paint myself as well. And I'd have a right good time. But I haven't painted for years. And I've only just recently started doing that again, and it absolutely lights me up. But what I've noticed is it's spilled over into different areas of my life. I feel more free with my creativity in terms of things that I am, the workbook I've created for you today.
Yeah.
And things I put on social media and things like that. It has opened like my mind to other things as well. So I think it's really important that we do things like that.
Yes, and it's brilliant that you remembered, because we so often forget, because childhood is so long ago, isn't it? And we're adults and we're supposed to do grown-up things and look after everybody. And it almost seems puerile, doesn't it, to think, oh, I'm going to spend some time getting some paints out. And I've been through exactly the same journey that you. Well, I wasn't a great painter when I was little, but finding artistic stuff now, and I'm not an artistic person, but we all need creativity in our lives in whatever way that we need to express it. And as you quite rightly say, that then allows us to be more creative in other ways in our life, and we need to be creative in our approach to life. So,
and not feel selfish for doing it.
And not feel selfish.
Or guilty.
Or guilty.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. It's the guilt. It always comes back to the guilt, doesn't it? Yeah. So how do women get away from that?
Well, it's actually doing the inner work and starting to look inside themselves and learn about themselves again. Find out what lights them up, what hobbies they like, all sorts of different things. It's just something, as we go through life, we don't tend to do.
Yeah.
Unless it's part of, I suppose in the corporate world, I guess there are sort of tests and things that you do along the way, to sort of personality tests and things like that, where that might highlight some of that stuff. But I know when I was a stay-at-home mum, I wasn't open to any of that stuff at all. Wasn't in my line of vision.
You wouldn't be, no. And with the meaning, it's not necessarily that somebody feels, what am I supposed to do? Am I supposed to do something huge? Like, I don't want to start my own business, or I'm not able to start my own business, or I can't write a book, or it doesn't need to be a huge thing like that. I think sometimes people mistake, well, I'm not like Oprah or J.K. Rowling, or that's not me. I have a much smaller life. But it's nothing to do with that, is it? Meaning. Like, you can have meaning just tending a garden might give you meaning, or helping a neighbour, or whatever it is. But it's just knowing what that is. But it doesn't have to be world changing to qualify as meaning.
No, it's what lights you up and gets you out of bed every day. And everybody's meaning is different. It's unique. It's like a fingerprint.
Yeah.
Nobody's going to have the same two meanings, because we're all different, and that's okay.
So the job that you were in, it didn't give you meaning, but may well have given the person next to you meaning.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Just because it didn't chime with your values and what you wanted out of life, they might have been quite happy with the installations that were dismantled, and they may have enjoyed working with their colleagues. And so it's not that people necessarily have to kind of ditch their career and leave their marriage and start a whole new life to find meaning. You can find meaning where you are.
Yeah,
often.
Absolutely. Even if it's just like picking up a paintbrush, or taking pride in the way that you wash the dishes, or look after your house, or things like that. It can be anything, and like you say, it can start small. I think the other thing that's really important as well is that I've noticed that my values have changed through life, with divorce and losing family members, and recently, like I said, my daughter's been in hospital. That's changed a couple of values for me. I think as well, your values develop. I think this is something we kind of look more at when we start to get older. Is that an awful thing to say? But I think for me, it became more important to me. When I was younger, I was more interested in materialistic things, and now I'm more interested in how I can be of service to other people, and what I can do in the world, rather than what I've got.
Yeah.
So over the years, one of my values has always been altruism. Yeah. But that's actually changed recently. I did some mindset work, and it was around goal setting, and I set this crazy huge goal that was just unreal. Like I was embarrassed to read it when I wrote it, because it was so big. And that was about 18 months ago. And since I've been focusing on it, it doesn't seem that big anymore. One of them was to touch 1 billion lives. And
A billion?
A billion.
Whoa.
Well, when you think, it sounds a lot, but when you think about it throughout your whole life and think of the ripple effect.
Yes. Yeah.
It's not that big, but when you write it down, it's like, who am I to say I want to touch 1 billion lives? But then I had one, I think it was like, actually it is achievable. I had one social media post that hit like 40,000 views or something. So, you know, when you look at it in terms of that, it's actually not that big.
Yeah.
But when you first write it, it's like, oh God,
And it can feel very arrogant, particularly for a woman, I think. Particularly for a British woman.
So there was that. And then another part of my goal was that I wanted to be a philanthropist.
Yeah.
And I'm like, who am I to be a philanthropist? Like you said, I'm not Oprah Winfrey, I'm not J.K. Rowling, but they are my idols, they're my inspiration. So they're who I look to. And then I'm sat and I'm looking at this word philanthropy on my dream board. And I'm like, who are you to be a philanthropist? And then I thought, how do I live that value now? If that's my... Oh, sorry. I get expressive. If that's my core value, why am I leaving it for the future? How do I do that now? So 2 weeks ago, I started the process of setting up my own charity.
Whoa!
Yeah.
Goodness. And what is this to help?
Well, it's to help... I don't want to say the actual thing of what it is, but it's to help women the way that I was in a place where I was trying to get divorced and I had no money. And basically I realised that there's a lot of women out there in that same situation. So I'm not quite sure the ins and outs of how it is going to develop, but I've had that little acorn and I've started the process and I'm really excited about it. So who knows, I may live my value one day of being a philanthropist.
I wish you loads of luck with it, and I'm sure you'll make it happen.
I am determined, I
can see it.
My other core value is purpose. So everything that I do in my life has to have purpose behind it, whether it's a piece of content I write, whether it's the way that I parent my children, whether anything has to have purpose behind it, not just for me, but for other people as well.
Wow. And you've put together a download, haven't you?
I have.
So specifically for our listeners that can help them to find...
So there are two. I've split it into 2 parts because I didn't want to overwhelm. So the first one is about finding your core values. So it's about 15 pages, but the reason being is because there's about 200 values on there. There's a lot more, you can add your own to the list, but so the exercise with that is I want you to intuitively listen to your gut, don't overthink anything and listen to your ego. I want you to go through and highlight your top 30 values that resonate with you. Then go back, come away from that for a minute, go back, whittle it down to your top 10, come away, go back, top 5, and then your top 2 core values. And then come back and tell me how hard that was.
And how do people get in contact with you if they would like to?
They can get in contact with me via my website, which is www.penelopesilver.co.uk. On Instagram, I am Penelope Silver Wellbeing, and on Facebook, I am Penelope Silver Wellbeing.
Lovely. Well, it's been such a delight to chat to you, as always. And I really hope that people go away and do the exercises that you've put together and gain something from it.
And I would love to know how they get on, so please let us know.
Comments.
Leave comments.
All right, well, thank you so much for coming in, Penelope.
Thank you so much for having me.
My pleasure.
Bye.